Oh, did you? Oh, welcome to No Instructions. I'm Bob.
And I'm Josh.
We were talking about snow cone machines.
Jimmy Buffett concoction makers.
Concoctions. They call them concoctions. How's it going?
It's going good, man. Now that we're inside.
Yeah, it got summer all of a sudden.
Now,
outside.
I know that on this show, I insistently whine about being cold. Mm-hmm. I really like that it's hot outside, but I'm a sweaty person. So I have to plan appropriately.
All right. So we have been outside for the last couple days working at Megan's house.
She doesn't know it, though.
I think she knows by now.
Yeah.
So we have been working on something over there, but it definitely became summer over the last few days, and so it's been warm.
It's nice.
A little warmer than I would prefer, but not bad. I did go for a run, so we recorded we're recording No Instructions right now. This morning, I recorded Making It, and I
still do that show?
Yeah, still do that show every week, and didn't go on a run beforehand, which would have been the best plan. So I had to go after the show, and that put it at about 11 o'clock. And the temperature has been going up enough to where 11 o'clock is pretty hot and steamy today. So it was a sweaty run.
We got a breeze every once in a while, which gave you a nice little reprieve, but it's just been hot.
Yeah.
But it's nice. My wife opened up the pool.
Yeah.
She and I have been working together to do it, but she's been taking on a majority of the grunt work. So she was fixing the pump before I left for work today, and she's been vacuuming it out. And she just sent me a picture of my daughter jumping into the pool. It's very cold, but she doesn't care.
Yeah.
So that's what she'll be doing for the next probably 4 or 5 months, jumping in the pool every day.
Cool.
Which I'm happy about.
Yeah. We've talked about getting a pool. I don't know if we talked about it on here, but we're putting a fence in the backyard. Because we have dogs. That was the main reason for getting the fence. But when we were talking to the fence dude, it was kind of like, well, someday we would like to have a pool again. And so if we're going to do that, the fence needs to be the kind of first step in, up to code pool fencing, whatever. So that was in maybe early February. And it is, what?
Missing a panel.
Yeah.
Oh, a panel fell down.
I just noticed, sorry.
The adhesive came off the thingy. Ah, perfect.
I'm just going to stay on this shot for the rest of the episode.
There, I'll fix it. You talk. Maybe not.
Anyway.
Whatever.
Who
built that?
It heated up and all of the sticky came off. Anyway, so we put in the order for this fence in early February, and it is now almost the middle of May. No fence.
No fence.
No fence. Our dogs are big and really want to run, but we don't have a fence yet. So anyway, all that to say, we're kind of prepping for a pool, to have a pool again in our backyard someday, but it's so expensive.
Yeah.
To have a pool. We want an in-ground pool. That's what we had before in Savannah, and so I'd like to have that again.
Tell you, I would not have a pool unless my house had one when we bought it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Because they're expensive.
I mean, the same for us. Like, we wouldn't have ever put one in Savannah, where it would make a lot of sense because it's really hot down there and everything. Having a pool is great down there. But we just, when we were looking for a house, we found that one that had a pool, and it was a big kind of, I don't know, like that scene. We had one kid. He was 9 months old going in that house.
So it's a liability at that point.
Yeah, we're like, I don't know. I mean, we want the kids to learn how to swim really young. Jenny learned how to swim when she was like less than a year old. And, so we just kind of said, well, if we do this, like the kids have to learn really, really early. We have to be, just really on top of keeping the door locked and all this stuff. That's before we knew we were going to have a whole bunch of kids. Then we had a whole bunch of kids. And they all learned to swim very, very early. And then moving away from it was nice because then we didn't have the burden of keeping up with it. Because it is a lot.
Yeah.
But now that we're up here, we get into summers. We're like, man, it'd be nice to have a pool jump in.
Yep.
So
it is.
Maybe someday. But I'm kind of looking at it as we might have it while our kids are home.
So looking,
but we might
doing
not.
a lot of projects in your backyard.
Yeah.
Where in the world are you going to put a pool?
So it will absolutely have to change the backyard. So right now our driveway comes from the front of the house, around the side of the house, and up to the back. My wife parks in the back of the house. And the fence is going to cross the driveway so that we can put the backyard. And it's going to have
You're going to have a gate?
We're going to have a gate.
Baller.
Yeah, I know.
Are you going to have a little buzzer thing on a pole? Or do you have to push the button?
We should.
you
We're gonna have a
have a-
remote.
Oh, not like
Yeah.
a pre-recorded British person that's like,
That'd be
state
fun.
your business.
That'd be a fun project. We have to like.
Master Cloggett is not available.
Yeah, I wonder if
at
Sir
the
Michael Caine
moment.
is on Cameo because we could have him record the.
Yeah,
man.
that's the move.
That'd be so awesome. Some famous British person. has
Mr.
to be-
Cloggett is not available. Yeah, you could do it.
Anyway, so we are going to have a gate that goes across the driveway with the intention of eventually changing and having the driveway come up to the front of the house and maybe spinning the garage, put the door on the other side of the house.
Woo.
I don't know. This is all like, maybe someday.
I like this. They're like, we got to do about $100,000 worth of work in order to get a $30,000 pool.
Oh, no. Pools are $100,000.
Oh,
Yeah.
never mind.
Yeah. And in-ground pools are stupid expensive. And like right now, at least around here, the waiting list is like 2 years.
My neighbor like paid the deposit and had a guy stiff him. Yeah. That's why I helped him. A little bit, tiny helped him do his DIY in-ground pool, which still works. It looks really great now. 2.5, almost 3 years later.
Yeah.
So, whew, that was a lot of work.
So because if we do it, it will be several steps away.
Yeah.
It's like probably our grandchildren's pool. That's the way I'm kind of looking. I mean, obviously I don't want to have to wait that long if we don't have to, but I'm not trying to force it into, we have to get a pool so that our youngest can enjoy it when he's in middle school or whatever. You know, like it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money spent to get to a point where we have a place to put it if we do it at all. So we're not trying to force it, but
It's almost worth just buying a house that has a pool.
I mean, honestly, if you could find a really small house
Yeah. This has a pool already?
that has a pool, you could just drive over there and like.
You could
spend the
rent it out, but
afternoons.
like in the lease agreement, you're
I
like,
can use the
I get to
pool
come
whenever I
swimming
want.
whenever I feel like it.
So
In the nude.
when I was after I was out of college, we rented this house. Me and three other guys rented this house, and it had a pool in the backyard. So like post college
Man,
student,
I would not rent a house that had a pool to somebody.
It seems like a
That would
terrible
be
idea,
terrible,
right?
yeah.
So what was cool about it though was that it had a pool in the backyard, and there was the kind of sidewalk that goes around the pool. That little sidewalk with concrete thing.
Mm-hmm. Pool deck you're not supposed to run on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on one side of the wall, or one side of the yard, there was a wall right next to that. That was the back of a bike shop that was right there. And this wall was like the open concrete brick squares.
Yeah.
So there's a big opening that's perfect for climbing.
Oh, yeah.
So we could easily climb up this one-story wall and get on the roof of the bike shop and jump off of the bike shop into the pool, because you only had to jump over like a 2.5 foot, 3 foot sidewalk, and so you didn't have to make an effort
Yeah.
to clear it at all. So that was awesome. We did a lot of that, and that was when I met Jenny. It was when we lived in that house, and Jenny doesn't have a lot of fear
Right.
in things. And so she did this thing. She had a name for it, and I can't remember what the name for it was. But it was like a gainer where you run.
Was it the triple Lundy?
I don't know. You run off the diving board and you jump. You're going forward, but you jump backwards and
Yep.
dive backwards.
Yeah.
Inward.
That's called an inward? I don't know what it's called.
I don't know.
But she would do that and twist at the same time. So it looked like.
It's like when you watch the X Games and they just like name it some stupid name
Yeah.
that doesn't exist. Yeah.
It's like a holly flip
Yeah.
or whatever.
She's the ice cream cone.
Yeah. So she would do this thing and she would run off the board and it would look like she forgot where she was going mid jump and
She's
just
like,
like
had a spasm midair.
Then she started doing it off the roof.
Of course you did.
And it terrified me. And that was the point where I was like, we have to stop this.
I got to marry that girl.
Like, I really like her. She's going to die. We have to stop this jumping off the roof thing.
That's some quick like medical bill math in your head.
Yeah.
That's an investment I gotta.
I mean, I haven't
I gotta
signed
see
anything
through.
yet, but, So that's my pool, one of my pool stories.
I haven't had to do any medical bill math for my kids until my last kid. She's my medical bill kid.
Waiting to happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
She's gonna be the one that's like, my arm feels funny, and it's just like broke,
It's over there.
broken.
Well, my youngest broke his foot.
Oh yeah.
A couple of years ago.
Yep.
It was like right after we moved here. And it was such a weird thing. Like they're all, they're kids. They're not scared of stuff. They do lots of things that are questionable, but not any more than any of us did. I mean, they're just kids. But he was like walking on a tree they were on a trail somewhere, and he was walking on this tree that was broken and fallen over. And so he was, 3 feet off the ground. It wasn't like he was up in a tree. He was walking across a branch, and it was rotten enough that as he stepped on part of it, it just broke underneath him, and he just came straight down and landed on his foot. I mean, he wasn't doing anything outrageous. Totally broke his foot. Had to wear a cast for like 3 months or 4 months or something like that.
What bones have you broken? Have we talked about this?
0.
Oh, man.
Actually, not true. I went to the chiropractor one time for back pain, and he was like, well, I'll just...
He broke you.
I'll take some x-rays just so we know what we're working with.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, when did you break your back? I'm like, what? And apparently at some point along the way, he said, did you fall on your head a whole lot as a kid?
I don't remember.
And I was like, well, actually, yes, I did. I had several... landing on heads, crushing of necks kind of things when I was a kid. I was a little rambunctious. And apparently one of those broke something in my back, and I didn't know it. So it wasn't bad enough to bother me, I guess. But other than that, 0.
I have broken my right arm. I have broken my left arm. I was in a leg cast for a long time, for a couple weeks. It was the time that I told everybody I got hit by a car. I don't know if I've told that story.
I don't think so.
I think I've told that story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was riding my bike to go get my skateboard down at my friend's house. And I was like, well, this is awkward to carry. I'm like, I can just put it on my handlebars. And it's way easier to carry. And this girl was driving toward me on her bike. And we were doing the like, oh, which way? And then I turned super hard and hit the back of these people's car in their driveway. And then the skateboard got stuck in the spokes. And I flew over. Yeah. And I landed on my knee, and it was all bloody and busted all open and crooked. And like I don't know if you watch Family Guy, like when a cartoon gets hurt and that like one random body part is like turned wrong, that's how I felt like I landed. And I remember these people came out, they're like, oh my God. And they saw my bike against the back of this car and saw me on the ground. And I lived in Air Force Base housings. My dad was in the Air Force, and some guy was on a radio. He's like, yeah, this kid got hit by a car. We need an ambulance. And I was like, yeah, I got hit by a car. That's exactly what happened.
Yes.
Not that I had some weird, awkward, like shuffle step with a girl on her bike, and then I just end up crashing in a very awkward, cartoonish way. And my mom had just like decided to go back to college. So she was in like her first day of like adult going back to school. She got a call from somebody like on her non-cell phone, because there were not cell phones back then. She got a call from like the administration saying her son got hit by a car, and she was a nurse. So, like, she just hauled out of school. My dad was a fireman, so, like, he was on the other end of the radio. So, both of my parents knew exactly what had happened. And so, they, like, took me to the hospital. It was near on the Air Force Base. And so, I was hurt. But I was kind of okay. Like, my knee was all busted open and bloody. But I was like, I'm kind of chill by this point. I got to ride in an ambulance, which was pretty dope. And I remember they had to cut my shorts off of me, which was a little embarrassing. And I had a hat. I don't remember what I don't remember what the hat. I think I had an Atlanta Braves hat. I was a Braves fan at the time. Had a hat. And then it got like dirty. And I think I had like I was like messing with my knee. Right? Yeah. And I was like, oh man, my knee's all bloody. And so I had blood on my hand, and then I like took my hat and put it back on. So my hat had blood on it, and they threw it away. And I remember this whole time I was like, where's my hat? And the lady's like, oh, we had to get rid of it. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
You had to get rid of it. On it.
And my mom finally comes in, and like they got me all bandaged up, and I'm in the little thing, and I was like, I have to go to the bathroom, like really bad. My mom's like, well, you shouldn't be moving. I'm like, well, tell them I have to go to the bathroom. There's a bathroom down the way. And so she goes to like flag. She leaves and goes to get somebody, and this other nurse comes by. Like, I have to go to the bathroom really bad. And she's like, okay, don't worry. And so she comes back with a bedpan and like hands it to me. And I had seen like every cartoon and old movie back in the day when people like are in bedpans. And so like I knew what I was supposed to do in that. I'm like, no way. Hard no. I'm not doing that. And she's like, well, if you think you can make it. And I remember I got in, the person in the bed next to me was still conscious. And like they were alive and they were fine, but they had a wheelchair. And I'm like, can I use your wheelchair? I was probably 10 or 11. And they gave me their wheelchair, and I wheeled myself to the bathroom. Oh, wow. And on my way to the bathroom, I hit my knee on the wall, and it busted open and bloodied all again. And they were like, what are you doing? And my mom came back, and I remember like the angry nurse who gave me a bedpan and my nurse mom like all popped around the corner at the same time. We're like, what's going on? I'm like, I had to go pee.
Did you ever make it to the bathroom?
I did.
Okay, good.
And my mom passed away in 2009, and I would like to think that she met the good Lord thinking that her son got hit by a car. And not just
man.
that stupid boy just flipped on his bike in the dumbest, like, slapsticky kind of way.
That's pretty wild.
Her son's hardcore. Took on a Toyota Tercel all by himself.
I had a story. Oh yeah, I've told you about the me being in a straitjacket.
No,
Really?
I don't recall.
The Tweety bird?
What?
Okay.
You're saying random words now. Asparagus bulbs? Remember?
Asparagus bulbs. So when I was very young, I don't know, talking about hitting my head earlier and like falling on my head a lot.
They
So
put you in a straitjacket?
they put me in a straitjacket. So one time I was at my grandmother's house in Litchfield, Kentucky, a very small town, and she was having a yard sale. And it was this cool little tiny farmhouse that my mom grew up in, and it had a stone pathway around the side of the house. It went from the front porch just around, and the stones were, I don't know, a foot or so.
Paver kind of size.
These
stone?
were like actual stones, like
like
pulled
river
out of the
rock.
earth.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
just
Okay.
like
But used as like a walkway?
Yeah,
Okay. Got it.
they'd been there for
Eons.
70 years or something, covered in moss. And so it's like early morning, dew is on everything. I take off running from the front porch to go around the corner and hit one of these things and fall, and that's all I remembered. So then I wake up in an ambulance with my mom, and I think my aunt was in there as well, and then a medical person of some sort there. And I'm like looking up, trying to figure out what's going on, and I can still see this vividly. I was looking up, and I realized I couldn't move anything. I was like, wrapped up in something. And I looked down onto my lapel area, and there's Tweety bird. And they had put
Actually,
me
like you're hallucinating?
No.
Oh,
it was
a
like
picture of
it was like embroidered on a papoose straitjacket thing that they had me in. So I was bound in this thing and looked down, and I can still remember looking and seeing that, and then just being like, ah! Just like, what is happening right now? And I don't remember if I hurt or if I just remember Tweety bird and screaming, and then at some point I got out of it. But I had fallen back and hit the back of my skull on one of these rocks and, split it pretty well. Ooh. And so I had probably 3 or 4 of those splits on top of my head different times growing up, just falling off of things. Or
So if you were to shave your head, it would look really gnarly up there.
I have shaved my head before completely. But it's not too bad. But there's I think 3. And then I have one underneath my chin, a scar that runs like all the way across the base of my chin. In our basement growing up, we had this kind of interior room, that was just interior to the whole basement. Had a doorway with no door on it. It was like my playroom.
Okay.
Like a storage room that they just put all my stuff in. And so I played there. And it had a doorway with no door in it, and then a window looking into the kind of main room with no window in it, just an opening. And I was small enough that I could get in this little window and crouch down and fit and kind of jump through. And I don't know why. So one night there's a tornado coming through our neighborhood. And so we all go down to the basement. So it is howling outside. It's crazy. Enough. Sirens are going off. We're down in the basement because it's not safe to go out anywhere.
Right.
And so I'm in this playroom, and I climb up in this window for some reason and then go to jump out the other side. But when I expanded to jump, I just expanded into the frame.
Oh.
And then just fell forward.
So you tried to like flying squirrel outside of it, but you opened your canopy too early.
I got caught and then just fell forward and landed on my chin.
Oh.
And so it just like split my chin wide open, and they had to drive me to the hospital in the middle of a tornado.
Oh, man.
Because it just like busted wide open. And so I believe I had to get stitches on that one as well. But for a long time, you could see that scar across the bottom of my chin. That's not why I have a beard, but I forget about it because I have a beard.
I have a little scar right at the base of my lower lip where I bit through.
Ooh! Ugh!
It was we had a lot of like, let's build a ramp ideas.
I have a hard time with that stuff.
It was dope because I could stick my tongue through a little bit.
Nasty.
Like, ugh. That was fun. I like this. This is a fun time. I think the first time I broke my arm, I was at school. And I had a really old elementary school on this Air Force base. And the jungle gym, I want to go back there to this day. It's super impressive. It was just a bunch of like galvanized pipe, big, thick galvanized pipe, just built really tall, like erector set style, just structures. No real like theme. It was just like a square, really, really tall.
Yeah. I understand
10 to
that.
12 feet up in the air. And it was just like, climb those poles up, kids.
Yeah.
There's no slide.
Right.
Like, there's no reward at the top. Just go. And I remember I was on one side of the square, and the other side of the square had a set of monkey bars. And those maybe I was just a child, but I still want to go back because I think that they were made for very large adults. But it was on an Air Force base, and so they had built like a obstacle course somewhere else. And I think in my mind now it was like the same kind of construction, but they had a set of monkey bars that were very tall. And so I was perched on the top of the tallest like rung of this just metal, huge, really wide ladder type thing. That was probably 20 feet wide. And I was like, I think I could jump from here and catch those monkey bars that were probably another 15, 20 feet away from me. And there were kids that were like on the monkey bars. They're like, yeah, you totally could. I'm like, well, let's do it. And I launched off of there, similar to your like the flying squirrel analogy. But like those videos of the cats that like wiggle their butt, and they're going to jump on this hill. And then they're like, and they make it like 3 inches off of where they're going. That's what happened. And I tucked at the last minute and landed on a big tree root. And I broke my right arm.
Ooh.
It was in first grade. Because I remember we were learning how to write. And I had to learn how to write with my left hand.
Oh.
And
That's rough.
I didn't write very well anyway. I wrote really small. And so I was trying to write small with my non-dominant hand. It was very weird. And we had this thing where they had a bunch of wallpaper. And you had to glue the wallpaper to the bottom of like a blank sheet of paper. And you were supposed to just copy the pattern of the wallpaper straight down. And the one I had was really tiny and flowery. And I had to do all that with my left hand for a long time. It was like learning how to write for me was really crazy because my formative years of learning like letter structure
With the wrong
was
hand?
wrong.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. And the second time, when I broke my left arm, we had just moved into this house away from the Air Force Base. So it was a brand new house, and the garage was brand new, and the floor was still like nice, slick concrete. And it was summertime, and so my brother and I were home alone, and I just got bored. And we're like, let's go play tennis in the garage. And so we had these tennis rackets for some reason. We never played tennis before that day, I think. And we were running back and forth in socks, and we would hit the ball and like slide. And I ran really hard, and I slid, and I just like feet just went out from underneath me, and then I landed on the tennis racket on my arm.
Oof.
And broke that arm. A lot of stupid things. Like, yeah, I think ramps. A lot of ramps. I was concussed quite a bit during my preteen years. Because every time we would we are going to build this ramp better than we built the last one.
Yeah.
We're going to learn from...
This is going to be the one.
It was all a blur as to how it works. So some passerby who should have told me how the ramp was demolished underfoot. I don't remember. Yeah. I remember flying through the air and then waking up some minutes later, like in the backseat of our van on the way to the doctor. Remember getting my eyes dilated a lot?
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, I got hit in the face with a baseball. There's like a TikTok video where like you're watching like a pitcher throw the ball and then somebody foul tips the ball and it like hits the camera and it's like a jump scare kind of, that happened to me.
Oh. And
I remember this kid zipped the crap out of that ball and it foul tipped it and just, I remember waking up with everybody around me going like, he's finally awake. Wow. And then they like picked me up. Put me in the back of our Aerostar. I remember the middle row in the Aerostar was my row, and the back was my brother's row, because they would just like unconsciously pick me up off the side of the road and put me in the van and drive me to the hospital. And God bless TRICARE and military medical coverage, because, man, I ran up some medical bills, let me tell you. Never was I put in a straitjacket, though. That sounds kind of fun. I was putting a lot of splints.
No, not
never
fun.
A straitjacket.
Not fun. I never had any casts. So
I never had stitches, except for when I tried to give myself stitches, which I think we talked about.
Yes,
yeah.
We did. But
that didn't work out.
That was not as
I was in the
as
Army.
A kid.
No, I had learned from all those other ways. I was like, I've been to enough hospitals and seen this done enough times. I could do it myself.
Have you ever had staples?
No.
I have. When I was in 5th grade, I had my appendix taken out. So I had stomach problems for a long time, like several years, and we never could figure out what it was. They tried all this different stuff. And then one time I was at a basketball game, like a high school basketball game. And I remember just being like, this is like, I cannot take it anymore. I've been sick in the past. I've had all these problems, but right now, this moment is too much as a 5th grader. And so we went straight from there to the hospital, and they looked I don't know how they look at your appendix, but they looked at it and they were like, oh, yep, it's got to come out like right now. I don't think it wasn't rupturing or anything, but it was on its way.
Inflamed.
Yeah, something like that. So now you get your appendix out. It's like you can go home at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and
it's
you're good.
laparoscopic. They just poke you with like a...
I was in the hospital for a week,
Ooh.
and the incision was about 3.5 inches long. Had, I think, 8 staples in it, like legit stainless steel, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch.
On it.
Probably, I don't remember. But just like they have a big stapler. Ooh, we should have gotten an Arrow to sponsor this one.
That would have been cool.
Anyway, they just put a staple. But the crazy thing was I had to leave them in for several weeks, I don't know, 3 weeks or something before I could get them out. And when you get them out, I kept picturing them using like one of the staple grabber things.
Oh, the little like thing that looks like a snake's mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they had these like nippers, and they went down the middle, and they just cut them all in half and then just like pulled each side out. And so my scar is still a line with 8 dots on each side of it. You can still see all the dots and stuff.
I was always enamored when they took my casts off because they had the rotary tool.
It's funny that you can say you were always enamored. Like you had so many casts that it was an occasion.
So the hospital on Eglin Air Force Base, Florida. You walk in the front. There's an escalator. It used to be. They may have done renovations. Escalator that goes up to your right. That's where we would get shots as kids. So I remember hating that escalator and would have to be tricked to go up the elevator that was around the corner that I didn't know went to the same place. But I can tell you where the orthopedics. I know exactly where that is. I know where radiology is.
Hey, Janet. Good to see you again.
I know where all those places were by heart. My mom did not work at that hospital. She worked at another one.
Dang.
Yeah. And when I was in, my brother had his car. So he was, 16 or 17? Because we got in a car wreck in his car. And that I was able to, as a child, refuse to go to the hospital by paramedics as a minor, which I don't think should have been a thing. We got T-boned in his car. And I was sitting in the back when we were not supposed to be in my brother's car. We went to Walmart because that was the cool thing to do. And I bought a new fishing lure. And he was turning through this busy intersection to go to where our house was and got just like, boom, T-boned hardcore. It was kind of raining and we slid like a couple 100 yards up the road into the ditch.
Dang.
I was in the back seat. It was a little Ford Escort, like an 80-something Ford Escort. So it was only 2-door and it had a little triangle window. My head went through that triangle window.
Ooh, dang.
Yeah. And a massive like knot on the side of my head. I was concussed again. But I remember I woke up and everybody was kind of freaking out and there were like random people. And I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. My head hurts. And I looked down and that fishing lure had got stuck in my thumb. And the whole time, everybody was like trying to freak it out. Like, oh, we're going to call you guys. Don't move. Don't do whatever. And I was like, how am I going to get this fishing lure out of my thumb? And then like my head just hurt so bad. And then like some people down the street, like, we're like, we can play this off. Mom and Dad won't find out. And that was our biggest concern. We didn't want to get in trouble. And so these paramedics came. They're like, okay, we got to go to the hospital. We're like, we're not going to the hospital. He's like, you got to sign this piece of paper. I'm like, sure. I'm maybe a freshman in high school.
Wow.
Give me that idea. Let's scribble my name and I was like jingling with this like yellow and orange fishing lure. And so I got the fishing lure out at home where we would watch this video, some surviving video where they like cut the prong off and then you slid it backwards. So I had to do that at our house. But our neighbors came and were like, oh man, now we're caught because our neighbors found out. Not that my brother's car is destroyed on the road that we lived in a ditch. Like, well, I guess the jig is up now. And that was dumb. But yeah, that I had to go get eventually. I think I had to get a CT for that. I had an MRI recently, the other day, because the doctor had I had blood work just to go to the doctor because I haven't been to the doctor in a while. They're like, this level is a little low, but this level of a corresponding thing is normal and they should be the same. So I had an MRI of my brain and it was pretty cool. I don't know if you've ever had an MRI.
I have not.
It is like laying down in a claustrophobic tube with like the old like 80s laser gun sounds randomly happening all around you.
I mean, that sounds really cool.
It was kind of neat. It's something new. Like it's like I've never done this before. This is fun. Wow. And it was like I wonder what random sound it's going to make next. Yeah, it was like this lady, this automated voice was like, the next scan will take approximately 4 minutes, and you're like, oh boy. You go, and like, you're in this tube, and like the machine thing is like 4 inches from your face, and they put this little cradle over your head. And I remember thinking, like, anybody who's claustrophobic, because I had to answer that question many times. I'm like, nah, I'm fine. I don't really care. I've been to many of these machines. This is just a new machine to look inside me when I'm hurt. But it was hurt. Like, when I was a kid, it prepared me for all kinds of stupid stuff. One of the concussions I had to get an EEG. You ever have an EEG?
No.
Oh, you'd remember that. EEGs are dope. So they put all these electrodes. They had this little cradle on my head. And they glued these electrodes to my skull underneath my hair. And they're measuring brain waves.
Sure, like Professor X for a few minutes?
No, they do all these things to stimulate your brain. And so the lady was in a chair and you have to close your eyes, and she had this like crazy strobe light thing, but you could still see the light through your eyelids. And so all like the swirly, crazy geometric colors and stuff were all like going nuts. It was cool. And then she did these sounds, and I was like, okay, I can open my eyes. And she's like, okay, now hyperventilate. I'm like, what? She's like, yes, make yourself hyperventilate. And she like has her back to me, just like, oh yeah, just go ahead and do that real quick. Just make yourself hyperventilate. And I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. She's like, okay, you close your eyes, you open your mouth, and you just take like a whole bunch of repeated deep breaths really fast. So just repeatedly. For like a good 5 minutes straight.
Ugh.
And when you do that, you start tripping.
Really?
Like I've never done drugs, like hard drugs before. I imagine that's what it's like.
Crazy.
It's like the crazy swirly stuff. You completely like feel like you're falling. It was nuts.
Huh.
And then she was like, okay, you can stop now. You're like,
no, I can't stop.
And I had like come down off of it, and I'm like, that was crazy. She goes, yeah, that one's kind of fun.
Fun for her to watch.
I was like, I don't need to do drugs now. I can just kind of hang out and breathe real hard.
Huh. That's
But yeah, I got the results of the MRI, and I cannot read them. It didn't say anything bad, I don't think. I looked up some of the words. If my mom were around, I would ask her. But, you know, she's not. So it's not bad, I don't think. I didn't read anything bad. They didn't put any, like, sad faces on there.
There were no exclamation marks?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
That's good.
No, like, 2 weeks to live. That wasn't on there anywhere. So whatever. I think it's fine.
Did I ever tell you about that one colonoscopy I had?
No.
So one time I had a colonoscopy, and it was when I was having all these stomach problems as a kid. And so if you've never had a colonoscopy.
I've had many.
Yeah. They're supposed to knock you out.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
Right. So I go in, and I'm on this table, and they're like, okay, we're going to give you this whatever, and it's going to knock you out, and we'll see you in a little bit. Cool. They inject me with this stuff, and I'm just laying there, and they're like, okay, are you feeling tired? Nope. And after a little while, they're like, okay, we're going to give you something else. And they were like, this knocks out cows. I remember them saying that. This will knock out a cow, so you will definitely be out. I'm like, cool, let's do it. So they give me this stuff. 5, 10, 15 minutes later, I'm like wide awake. I can't feel anything at all. Can't use my tongue. Can't.
Oh, wow.
But I was wide awake.
But you could open your eyes?
Yeah, I was awake. And I was just like looking around, and they're like, you know, can you feel anything? And I'm like nodding, no. And they're like, okay, let's do this. So we did the colonoscopy with me watching the monitor.
I kind of want to watch the monitor.
It was pretty cool.
I'm that person.
Because it was like, you know, going through my guts.
Yep.
Obviously, I only saw it once it was in my guts. But it was like, they were like, oh, yeah, this is whatever, and this is whatever, and look at that little thing, and this looks clear over here. And I was just like watching it.
What, a gum you had when you were 9?
Yeah. Oh, like a penny. It was crazy. And I just got to see the whole thing.
That's cool.
And they actually printed out, I had them for a long time. They printed out a couple pictures of like little things that they found that they wanted to check on later or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I remember this one. I was there when they found that, whatever. But yeah.
That's when the natives came around the corner.
Yeah.
I saw the writings on the wall.
That was my colonoscopy story. I've shared it with the world.
Nice.
Now. So, we were not planning on talking about any of that stuff.
No, hospitals are neat. But now, like, every time I go through one of these things, I now think as a dad, like, oh, my kids would not do this. They would hate all of this. And then I think back, like, my rambunctious youth prepared me for things like that to not, like, I have a defense mechanism where I just kind of make light and make fun and make a joke out of everything.
Yeah.
And that has been the case. And so now when I go to the hospital, I'm not afraid. I guess I'm a little subconsciously whatever, like nervous, but I'm just making a joke the whole time.
Yeah.
And so my kids really have never had to go to the hospital. And so for them, like going to the hospital, and my mom was a nurse, so like I was familiar with hospitals and that weird smell. So like if they had to go to the hospital, like they would lose their mind going to the hospital.
Maybe
don't
not.
know.
Maybe not though.
I would try to like make light of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think the thing is, so our oldest has been in the hospital one time, and he wasn't scared because he was okay and he wasn't in a lot of pain, but also because we were with him and we weren't scared.
Yeah.
And I think that had a lot to do with him.
I think my dad did that. My dad was the one that was like, hey, what do you think that thing does?
Yeah.
Or like, check this thing out. And he would like dig through all the drawers before all the doctors would get there and like play with all the stuff. And so we
Nice.
Yeah, we would just like mess around in the room waiting for the doctor. Like, you shouldn't leave me alone in a room. And apparently Megan and Anthony now know you shouldn't leave buttons in front of me during meetings. Because I accidentally turned on the fog machine and smoked out the entire building.
And the Simply Safe called me to check to see if our building was on fire.
That's what we should do for our next ad.
That's not a bad idea,
Personal
honestly.
story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that really helped too. Is my dad would like we would play around in there.
Yeah.
And so it didn't make it as scary.
My dad was a dentist when I was growing up. He's retired now, but he was at the hospital some because he was like on call and stuff like that. But, not in the same capacity a doctor or a surgeon would be at, like their kids would grow up like, yeah, they're at the hospital. Like, I'm going to go to the hospital to see them at lunch or whatever. It wasn't like that. But there was just enough medical stuff, I guess, in proximity to my family. My granddad, my dad, my uncle were all dentists. That it, I wasn't like afraid of it. I had great doctors growing up. Like pediatricians were fantastic, and I actually saw my pediatrician before COVID somewhere, or sometime right before COVID at a soccer game, and she remembered me.
Dang.
And that was a really long time ago.
It's like there's that kid I stapled back together.
No, it wasn't that doctor, but she was awesome. She was super cool, and I remember being in the kind of like ready to go to. Maybe not college, but, later high school and everything, and I had to go get a checkup for something. And I remember her just being really cool and not, I'm the authority figure, I'm a doctor, I'm going to tell you how you need to, she was just, it was like relaxing. And I remember it was the first doctor's appointment I ever went to by myself. And it was just to get a checkup or something. But anyway, it was weird, but also kind of cool to see her whenever that was recently. Did I tell the story about my son, my oldest, going to the hospital for the Lego?
I don't know. I thought that's what you were going to talk about.
Yeah.
Seeing how we're building Legos right
Yeah. So I feel like I've probably told this on here before, but I'm going to do it anyway.
It's like radio. We got to remind people what's going on.
In case you're just now joining us, this show is called No Instructions. I'm Bob.
I'm Josh.
So several years ago, thanks. A few years ago, my oldest, we had some friends over, and they have kids same age as our kids. So the kids are all playing. We're sitting down having dinner and stuff. And then somehow, I don't remember, they're like, oh, he's choking. And so I run upstairs because I think one of the kids is choking. And he's not choking, but he has something in his throat. So
coughing?
He was kind of coughing. He was talking and stuff, but he wasn't choking, but there was something stuck. And so through talking and trying to figure out, his explanation was that he fell. Now, this is a few years ago. He was younger. He fell onto a Lego, a 1x circle, which 1x1 flat. It was a flower, but it was this size, the smallest Lego piece you can get, basically. He fell on it, on the floor, and inhaled at the same time, and it went down his throat. That was the story. I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense at all. But either way, it's stuck in your throat, And, he was saying, like, I can feel it. It's, like, right there. I just don't. So we tried to get it out and everything, and then ended up going to the hospital. And because he could breathe and because he could talk, it wasn't an emergency. We just had to wait for them to try to see if they could find it and figure out. Because it's plastic, it wouldn't show up on x-rays, and they tried some other imaging thing and couldn't find it. And so we spent the evening in the hospital, them checking him out, and then they couldn't find it. And they're like, well, it may have gone through and maybe have like scratched his throat, so maybe he's just still feeling it, the damage it did, but it's not there anymore. And they like, we can't see it. So we went home. A couple days later, he's still complaining about this, like the scratchy feeling where it was and all this stuff. And so one day while I was at work, Jenny took him to a hospital in Louisville, like some specialist or something. And they found that it was still lodged in his throat. Or no, it was lodged in his lung. Had gotten into his lung through his throat and was down at that, whatever that opening is. I don't know.
Your bronchioles.
Yeah. And so while he was awake, they took little super tweezers, robo thing, and stuck it down his throat.
That's cool.
And grabbed it and just pulled it out. So he came home with a little jar with a Lego in it.
Yep.
He's like...
he was pretty excited. He showed everybody.
We've still got it in that jar, and I'm not going to touch it. But, yeah, so we've still got the thing. And we found out later on, we finally got him to confess that he had a piece of Lego in his mouth. And he was like... like just holding it in his mouth or something. And then they got to wrestling and he fell and inhaled it. But.
Did you go, shocker?
Yeah. Like, didn't see that one coming. Yeah. But other than that, I don't think we've had any other. And the broken foot, I guess. Which I wasn't even around for. Like, they came home one day and she was like, oh, yeah, he broke his foot. He has a cast on. Like, what?
I remember he had that cool boot. And he was really small.
Oh, yeah.
And that boot was, like, ridiculously large. It was like Hellboy's arm, but on his foot.
Yep. And we still have the boot. He kept the boot.
Yeah.
Well, the boot is, outside the cast. So the cast was the gross part. We made him throw away when he was done with it. But we still have the boot, and it's in, like, the closet where all of the costumes and everything are. Nice. So occasionally he'll come running out in, like, some Spider-Man costume and a boot.
Oh, yeah, the cast, man. Ugh. Cast, I imagine, is like... If you were an Egyptologist and you opened up a sarcophagus, it stinks.
Yeah.
You got to wear like the bread bag over your arm or leg whenever you're trying to take a bath. And it itches inside, so you get like a stick. And then part of this, I remember on my left arm, I did that with a stick that I found, and part of the stick broke off. And I remember the nurse or the whatever technician that was cutting this thing off. And I was familiar enough, and he was trying to impress me with like this cool saw. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm like... It's nothing new.
It's a cool saw.
But he cut it off, and like you pry it, and then it's wrapped in gauze underneath that layer. And so he was unwrapping it, and he got down to maybe like an inch or so above my wrist. And he's like, "Is that a stick?" I'm like, "Yeah." And it was like not mushy, but like
soft,
a lot more pliable because it's just like in sweaty, gross Florida undercast, stink, nasty. And I remember thinking, this dude, I was like, "Is this why you joined the Air Force? Is this how you wanted to aim high in your life? Cutting disgusting casts off of people."
Gross. Gross.
You nasty, man.
How long have we been talking about this stuff?
45 minutes.
45 minutes.
Pros and cons?
Sure. I was thinking we could talk about Doctor Strange today, but...
I think, do we need to do a spoiler cast? Is it worthy of a spoiler cast?
Yeah. I mean, I don't...
It's still new enough.
Yeah, I definitely would not want to spoil it. There are some things in it that I would not want to spoil for people.
Okay, so for the listeners at home right now, we have 2 podcasts in the can. So we're recording this now. 125 should be out in the morning, and then 126 should be out the next week. So this podcast theoretically is like 3 weeks away.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Thanks,
so
Megan.
We could.
Keeping us on top of everything.
I know.
We could. But also, I don't know if we have anything super special to say about it or anything. I just thought we could...
I was right. I like being right on Marvel movies.
You should talk about that at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, spoiler. Here's your spoiler alert. If you
Real
haven't
quick,
seen
let's
it.
talk about it real quick. Movie was wacky.
Super wacky.
It's madness. It said so in the title. You know what you're getting into.
I have to say, I dislike the title.
Yeah.
It's just hokey. I don't know.
It's Doctor Strange. There's multiple versions of Doctor Strange through multiple. There's multiverse hopping. Wanda's the bad guy. bad girl, whatever. And then in one of the universes, they go in front of the Illuminati tribunal of superhero counselors. There's is it Ms. Marvel? Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel, but her friend who was flying the thing, she's Captain Marvel. There's
Captain Carter.
Yep, Captain Carter from the cartoon. The other guy from Inhumans that you were talking about. I keep wanting to say Brown Note, but I know that's not right.
Brown Note?
What's his name? Dark something?
Black
Tone?
Man? I don't know what his name is. It's like he has like a black suit. And he's
like a pitchfork on his head, and when he talks to people, their brains explode.
Hold on.
I'm going to say Black Beetle, but that's not right. That's a Blue Beetle.
Black Betty?
Is it?
Amberlam. What's that guy?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. He's the king of the Inhumans or the
when he
leader
speaks,
or whatever.
It makes people's head explode.
Yeah.
That guy.
And then there's two surprise people who I kind of guessed through, like, people wanted it to happen.
Yeah.
And Sam Raimi just fan serviced everybody. John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic. Reed Richards showed up, was pretty cool.
I mean, he is pretty fantastic.
Yeah. And then Professor X rolls in with the X-Men 97 theme song playing in the background.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Which was pretty great. And I'm sitting next to a friend of mine who came with us, and Anthony he was like, why were people so excited when Patrick Stewart showed up? Is Patrick Stewart just because he's cool?
What?
Yeah. I never watched the show, but it was cool. Like, those were complete fans. And then they all die.
Anthony, have you not seen those movies?
No.
The cartoons?
No.
The X-Men movies?
No.
Wow.
No.
I mean, still getting over John Krasinski.
Okay, so I personally have never been a huge X-Men fan. I don't dislike them, but like wasn't my thing. But I did enjoy the movies because they were kind of the first of
that cartoon slaps, man. That cartoon really works. The 97 X-Men cartoon, it was good stuff.
You know, they're making a new 97 X-Men cartoon. Okay.
Fan service. Gotta love it.
Yeah. Anyway.
But it was really cool. And then, Wanda killed everyone. So Marvel gave him an out. They're like, here you go. We'll throw all you a bone by putting John Krasinski in a thing. But then he could never show up. He might show up. Ooh, maybe.
I'm sure that
it was cool how they killed him, though.
That was pretty wild.
They rubber band-balled him to death.
So that was one thing. My kids all kind of commented that all of those deaths in that particular part of the movie were, like, they kept saying brutal.
Yeah.
And they were pretty rough.
Oh, yeah. What's his name? Like, that Scream kills people? She, like, got rid of his mouth so he couldn't yell. And so he just, like, I guess spoke to himself in his head. And his head exploded, like, imploded on itself. It was pretty gruesome.
A little bubble popped out of the side of his head.
She was scary.
She was. I think that was the point.
So in the, like, multiverse where they introduced all these new characters from the different worlds, then they were running away. The America girl who could, go through the universes, and Doctor Strange's multi-dimensional love interest. They're running through, like, the sewers, and I so wanted the Ninja Turtles to just, like, pop out and save the day, which I know is not canon in any way, but whatever. We're jumping dimensions. We can do whatever we want. There was rumors that there was Mustafar, Darth Vader's the lava planet, maybe, sure, whatever. Any planet that has lava on it is now magically Mustafar.
Yeah.
So it's just as easy for me to jump to a conclusion that any sewer that people could run through or operate in should belong to the Ninja Turtles.
Except that the Ninja Turtles are owned by Warner. They're a Warner Brothers thing. So
they should have made, like,
never would happen.
They're Ninja Frogs. Something stupid.
Samurai
tangent,
frogs.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was a comic.
This is Van Gogh. He uses skies. And it's like an aqua headband.
That would be awesome. Yeah, it was a good movie. I don't think it was in my top. I'm not even gonna say top number, but it was not one of my favorite Marvel movies. It had some cool things in it.
It was neat.
Like the music fight was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Just because it was so weird and, like, it wouldn't fit in any other movie like that.
And I think that's the thing with Doctor Strange being just, like, magic.
Yeah.
At one point, like, he was handcuffed and it took his magic away, and then he was handcuffed to the other guy, and they were, like, fighting handcuffed together, but they couldn't use magic. Which was a cool kind of fight scene. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking, if he's a surgeon, and yes, he goes to Comertage and he learns how to do, like, I don't know, some kind of martial arts. But it would have been really cool that if they took his magic away, he was just like a sucky guy who just that's all he really has is magic, and like he doesn't know how to fight. They just like slap fight each other in this thing, which I thought would have been funnier. So I think that movie, rather than just pulling me along, allowed me to go, hey, it would be cool if you did this.
Yeah.
Along the way.
Right.
They gave me fan service, so I just...
And they did
I took
some
a
of
mile.
that. Like, they took some of that what if kind of, it would be cool if things, and showed some of them, which was neat. But it's not one that I would be in a hurry to watch again.
No.
Because even some of the Marvel movies that I didn't like that much, I would like to see them again. But that one, like, I don't know. Yeah.
Wanda's now dead, I guess?
No. There's no way.
She squished herself?
No. I mean, she's
squished?
magic. She's like a witch. She probably made like a bubble around herself, and she just ruined the place around her.
It had a little, like, pop of red magic, assuming that she got squished and her magic popped out. I guess that's how that works.
Yeah, I don't believe that. She's not dead. There is unresolved story with her and Vision.
Yeah, Vision did not show up at all in any of her universe hopping.
Which was weird.
It was kind of weird.
Which goes to show, if I was somebody, I would have went, well, have you seen Vision in any of them universes you've been trying to dream walk through? And she'd be like, no. I'm like, well, maybe you just weren't meant to be together and this was a fluke. So how about you just kind of get over it?
Yeah.
And get on Tinder.
And then she would have squished your head with her mind.
That's fine. She would have
Get on
taken
Tinder.
+4 emotional damage is what she would have taken.
That's right.
Take that, witch.
Yeah, I think there's still unresolved stuff there. Like, there's no way that they will leave her as a villain. I'm not saying she's going to come back to the Avengers. I'm not saying that.
They tried to like, oh, she like got rid of all of the whatever that she was using bad. And I thought that was kind of a cheap way out.
Yeah. There will be some sort of a... Down the road, I don't think in the next few movies, like probably 2 or 3 years, there will be another thing that, she and Vision come back and they're both like altered versions of their original ones, and they have to either both be destroyed to save each other or, some weird finality to it. But it's not resolved, so I don't think she's done yet. But who knows? Who knows? All right, do we have any time for pros and cons?
I don't need one or two.
We run this joint. We
Let's
do
do
what we
it.
want.
That's true. Let's do a couple. What
Yeah,
you got, Megan?
All right. We have pros and cons for parenting books.
Is that like good ones and bad ones, or are they good or bad?
Are they good or bad?
There was one parenting book that somebody gave me, and it was like the dude's realistic guide to being a new dad or something. I mean, that's not the title. But I remember the very
pretty bad
first page
title.
like had a cute little baby, and it was like, you're about to have a baby. This is great. And it had like the cute little goo-goo kind of Gerber baby thing. And it was like, oh, yeah, this is not what your baby's going to look like at all. And so you turn to the next page, and it's like a disgusting, dripping, raisin-looking, gross-looking thing. And I was like, this is what your baby's going to look like. So be prepared for this, not for that. And I was like, ugh. And then the next page talked about the first diaper, and it was like, you be prepared for poop. I'm sure you're prepared for poop. And they're like, you're not prepared for this poop. This is what it is. I was like, ew. And I remember probably learning the most from this, like, bro's guide to having a baby, and whatever. So that one, I could say yes. If I was to buy one for a new parent, it would be that one. If I could Google the name enough to figure out what it is exactly called.
I will say that a lot of them don't actually give you anything useful. I mean, I've not read a lot of parenting books, but I know when we first had kids, we were given a lot of books that were either like covering the first year of basic stuff that all becomes, it's like natural for you to understand how to take care of a human to a point. I mean, obviously help is help. It's good, but the book is like, I'm not going to waste time looking up in a book to see what I should do in this particular situation. I'm going to use
sleep?
I'm going to use my
glossary?
intuition. But the help that we had, the most helpful things that we had when we had really young kids were from people. Experience from other people who had been through the exact same stuff. We had our oldest was a terrible sleeper for the first couple, 18 months or something. And we were terrible about every time he would cry, we would try to wait it out. And then after a few minutes, we'd go in and get him, and he'd fall back asleep in our arms, and we put him down, and he would sleep for 15 minutes and then wake up and scream again. And it was terrible, terrible, terrible. Like one of the most unhappy times of my entire life was that couple of months where we just didn't know what to do. And we were exhausted. And somebody, I don't even remember who it was, just said, take 2 days and do not go in there. Just don't go in there. They will scream for 6 or 8 hours, but just don't go.
Yeah.
Until you know that they need to eat, or you know that if the stuff is taken care of, just don't go. And we did that for about 2-3 days, and then it was done, and we never had to deal with it again. And it was just somebody's personal experience.
Yeah.
In our specific situation, that was the useful thing. So, separate from that, though, we've both read a book called Scream-Free Parenting.
Yeah.
Which is
It's good.
Good and challenging.
Yes, it's very challenging.
Because it talks a lot about, and it's not for newborns or maybe even
it's for when you want to scream at them.
It's when you want to scream at a person.
When you start thinking that you want to scream at your kids, you need to read that book.
Yeah, because it gives you a lot of grounding about who you are and who they are and what your relationship is supposed to be, what you're responsible for, what they're responsible for. And it kind of lets you off the hook a little bit for some things. And for your responsibility of their behavior, basically, is kind of a way to look at it. It's a good one. It's not everything in it is. I'm not going to say it's like a perfect book or anything, but it has a couple of significant points that will probably make a difference.
It cuts you deep.
Yeah. It's one of those I have to keep going back and remembering on a regular basis as my kids change, for sure. All right, what else we got?
Switch up gears, and what are your thoughts on reserved bacon grease?
Oh, man. My mom had a little jar of reserved bacon grease. It was disgusting looking.
Reserved bacon grease.
Yeah, you cook bacon, and there's a little mason jar beside the stove, and you just dump the grease in there so you don't dump it down the sink and ruin your plumbing. And then it solidifies, and then if you need to make some whatever, you just take a little glob of this now gelatinized bacon grease and throw it in the pan, and it makes food taste better, I guess, if you want your food to taste like bacon grease, which I think you should, probably. Majority of the time.
As someone who doesn't really cook very much, it sounds... what's the word? I don't know what the word is. It sounds like something you would do if you lived on a farm and you only have so much resource and you want to... What?
Primitive.
Maybe primitive, or just like, like we don't always have this when we need it, so we're going to keep it so that we have it when we want it. Sure. I don't think I don't live in that situation, so it seems to me that like you should just find a way to throw that away.
If you have a mamaw,
yeah,
she's got a little container of bacon grease.
Yeah.
And I think now they've made little jars that have like a mesh kind of filter or something, because you can get rid of the actual like burned little bits, and so it doesn't look like just a disgusting little cup of gross. I mean, it doesn't look great, but it looks a lot better. But yeah, Southern people know you put a little jar of bacon grease beside your stove.
But you gotta get rid of it after a while because it can go rancid.
It can go rancid, Anthony says.
So, yeah,
I will say that I walked in at my parents' house once, and their cat was up on the counter licking out of the bacon grease jar. So I said, "How long has he been doing that?" She had no idea.
Gross.
we haven't had bacon in a couple of months. So. All right. Well, one more?
One more. Dance battles.
Dance battles.
Con?
I've never been involved in a dance battle. Like capoeira or like Guardians of the Galaxy? Where...
Oh. Like a dance off. I don't know. I'm not a dancer, but I would think that dancing should be one of those expressions of joy rather than...
Not aggression?
Non-aggression.
I'm going to go with that. We should make that into a t-shirt.
Totally on brand.
Dance for love, not hate.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we cleared that up pretty quickly.
That's fast.
All right. Well, big thanks to our Maker Alliance, excuse me, who always is fantastic. We had the monthly hangout last night. Got to see lots of people on there. Had a couple new faces show up, which was really cool. And we talked about all sorts of stuff. And they are super cool. When the nights when we have that hangout, a lot of times this season I have to leave early to get kids to soccer practice and everything. And they could hold that against me. They could because they financially support what we do, and they're invested in the community, and they could hold it against me, but they are always super gracious with just go take care of your family, go do the things you got to do.
We'll be here hanging out talking about stuff you don't get to be privy to.
Yeah, and they have like a whole big long hangout for several more hours after I'm gone. It's funny because I've come down before very late to my office, and the screen is still up, and they're having a conversation, and I don't listen in, but I can see that they're on, so I just leave it and go about my business. But anyway, it's a great community of people. They're doing all sorts of stuff together. They share lots of conversation and lots of projects, and they are doing a summer camp that they have completely put together on their own, and it's going to be really cool. There was discussion last night about dueling zipline jousting, which is not actually going to happen, but it was an awesome conversation to have.
Zipline jousting.
Yeah, the person Brian, who's in charge of safety at the summer camp, kind of
Said no?
said no to that one pretty quickly, but it was a fun conversation. So, anyway, if you want to join that crew, if you want to hang out on the Discord server, if you want to get discounts on plans and see videos early and all of that type of stuff, go to
I'm going to go post a video for them momentarily.
Oh, okay. Well, you can get that new video. If you go to iliketomakestuff.com/join, you can join through Patreon or YouTube. It's all the same stuff, but however you want to join, go do that. Or don't. Just glad you're here. Glad you're listening. Where can people find you on the internet?
At Josh_makes_stuff.
Hey, Megan, where can people find you on the internet?
At Megan Lee
On Instagram?
on Instagram.
Cool. You can
Anthony,
find...
what about Anthony?
Yeah, well, he doesn't have a microphone, but...
Yeah, we're allowed.
Real loud.
Anthony Film Stuff?
Yeah.
Anthony
one
Film
word?
Stuff.
Yep.
Anthony
Unless
Film
it's,
Stuff.
I had to do an Anthony_film stuff somewhere. I don't remember where it was, but I'm pretty sure it's because I already made an account once before and forgot.
Okay. So do Anthony Film Stuff, throw an underscore in there somewhere, you'll get to him. He's doing a lot of renovation and kitchen building.
Cabinets.
Cabinets. And you can find all of us at I Like to Make Stuff on all the different social networks. And yeah, I guess that's it. Unless
That's
you got
about
anything.
it.
Cool. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time.